day between 5 and 6 in the afternoon. I don't remember exactly. I had no time to look at my watch or catch a glimpse of the drop on the tower of the old town hall. But even had I remembered to look at the town hall, I could not have done so, for I would have had to look above Andrew's head. We were just walking on the right side of the market square when Andrew turned around and said, "Do you want to be my life's companion?" That's what he said. He didn't say, "Do you want to be my wife?" but my life's companion. What he intended to say must have been thought over. He said it looking ahead, as if afraid to read in my eyes, and at the same time as if to signify that in front of us was a road whose end could not be seen. There was, or at least could be, if I replied yes to this question. I answered yes, not at once, but after a few minutes. And yet, in the course of those few minutes, there was no need for reflection, no need to struggle between motives. The answer had almost been determined. We both knew that it reached deep into the past and advanced far into the future, that it penetrated our existence like a weaver's shuttle to catch the weft that determines a fabric's pattern. I remember that Andrew did not turn his eyes to me at once, but looked ahead for quite a while, as if gazing intently on the road before us.
I went quite a long way before reaching Trinity. I did not find her at once. I don't even remember if our first meeting was marked by any kind of presentiment. And I don't think I even knew what love at first sight meant. After a time, I realized that she had come into the focus of my attention. I mean, I had to be interested in her. And at the same time, I accepted the fact I had to. Though I couldn't behave differently from the way I felt I must. I thought there would be no point. There must have been something in Teresa that suited my personality. I thought much at the time about the alter ego. Teresa was a whole world, just as distant as any other man, as any other woman. And yet, there was something that allowed me to think of throwing a bridge. I let that thought run on, and even develop within me. It was not an assent independent of an active will. I simply resisted sensation and the appeal of the senses, for I knew that otherwise I would never really leave my ego. And I knew I would never reach her. But that meant an effort. For my senses fed at every step on the charms of the women I met. When once or twice I tried following them, I met solitary islands that led me to think that beauty, accessible to the senses, can be a difficult thing, or even a dangerous thing. I met people led by it to hurt others. And so, gradually, I learned to value beauty accessible to the mind. This is to say, truth. I decided then to seek a woman who would be indeed my real alter ego, so that the bridge between us would not be a shaky footnote among water lilies and reeds. I met a few girls who absorbed my imagination, and also my thoughts. But at the moment when it seemed to me I was most concerned with them, I suddenly realized that Teresa was still there in my consciousness and memory. And I instinctively compared each of them with her. And yet I even wished them to push her further away from my consciousness. In a way I counted on it. And I was ready to follow sensation, strong, forceful sensation. I wanted to regard love as passion, as an emotion to surpass all. I believed in the absolute of emotion. And that is why I could not grasp the basis of this strange persistence of Teresa in me. The cause of her presence, the assurance of her place in my ego, or what creates around her that strange resonance, that feeling, you ought to. So I avoided her cautiously, deliberately evaded, everything that could cause even the shadow of a guess. Sometimes I even tormented her in my thoughts, while seeing in her my tormentor. It seemed to me she pursued me with her love. In this, I decided I must cut myself off decisively. Thus grew my interest into reason. Love grew, in a sense, from resistance. Or love can be a collision in which two selves realize profoundly they ought to belong to each other, even though they have no convenient moods or sensations. It is one of those processes in the universe which bring a synthesis. Unite that which was divided, broaden and enrich that which was limited and narrow.
I must admit, Andrew's proposal was something I did not expect. I really had no reason to counter it. It always seemed to me that Andrew did everything to make me useless to him and to convince me that this was so. If I was not quite unprepared for his proposal, it was because I felt that somehow I was the right one for him, and that I suppose I could love him. Being aware of that, I must already have loved him. But that was all. I never allowed myself to nurse a feeling that remained unanswered. Today, however, I can admit to myself that I did not find it easy. I recall one month particularly, and in that month, one evening, we were hiking in the mountains. A big group of us, but very close. Our friendship was especially strong. We understood one another perfectly. Andrew was quite clearly then interested in Christine, but this did not spoil the pleasure of the ramble for me, for I was always as hard as a tree that would rather rot than topple, and if I cried for myself, it was not from disappointed love, and yet it was difficult. That evening particularly, night fell as we were going down, and I shall never forget the small lakes that surprised us on the way, like two cisterns of unfathomable sleep. There was metal sleep, mixed with the reflection of a bright August night, and yet there was no moon. Suddenly, as we were standing and watching, I shan't forget this as long as I live, somewhere above our heads, we clearly heard it call. It was rather like wailing or a groan or even a whine maybe. Everyone held his breath. It was not clear whether it was a man calling or a late bird wailing. The same call was repeated once more, and then the boys decided to call back. Through the quiet sleeping woods, through the mountain night, and to signal. If it was a man, he would hear it. The first voice, however, was heard no more. And just then, when everyone had grown silent, listening in case the call might ring out once more, I was suddenly struck by another thought, also about signals. That thought returned to me today, between Andrew's profile and the terror of the old town hall clock in our city, today between 5 and 6 in the afternoon, when Andrew asked me for my hand. Then I was thinking about signals that could not connect. It was a thought about Andrew and myself, and I felt how difficult it is to live. That night was terribly hard for me, though it was a truly glorious mountain night and full of nature's secrets. Everything around seemed so very necessary and so in harmony with the world's totality. Only man was off balance and lost. Perhaps not every human being, but I know for certain that I was. So today when Andrew asked, would you like to become forever my life's companion? After 10 minutes, I answered yes. And after a while, I asked him if he believed in signals.
Teresa asked me today, Andrew, do you believe in signals? And when I, surprised at this question, stopped for a moment and looked astonished into my fiancé's eyes, my fiancé of a quarter of an hour, she told me her thoughts. that had been revolving in her head since that evening in the mountains. How close she passed by me then. She almost held me in with her imagination, and that discreet suffering, which at the time I did not want to know, and today I'm willing to regard it